It's terror time. Subscribe now and hit that like button so you don't miss any story. The first time I realized the shadows were wrong was beneath a full moon over York. They weren't flower shadows, those things. They were human silhouettes, contorted, floating above the damp earth of my secret garden, like puppets made of pure darkness. And I, Eleanor, the reclusive botanist who had cultivated them with such obscene care, felt a coldness not born of the English night seep into my bones. They were alive, in the worst possible way. It began with the anonymous package. No sender, just my name and the address of my old house on Elmwood Lane in Cambridge. Inside, wrapped in strangely damp, cold moss, were 3 black, irregular seeds, pulsing with a faint blue phosphorescence only visible in absolute darkness. A note, written in archaic, trembling English, explained their origin. Kepler, 7b Lunar Colony. Lunambula nocturna, it said. Flowers blooming only under the most intense moonlight, nourished not by water, but by human tears. Genuine tears, harvested at the peak of pain or profound despair. The note was clear and terrible. Your world soil is poor for such wonders. Enrich it with the salt of the soul. Obsession consumed me. My life, once dedicated to harmless orchids and ferns, narrowed to that walled garden at the back of the property. Loneliness, my constant companion since losing my twin sister, Isabel, in a nebulous accident years before, became the perfect fuel for the monstrosity taking root. I justified it. It was science. Discovery. The pursuit of unknown botany. Fragile lies echoing off the empty walls of the house as I prepared the special substrate, a black mixture of soil, ashes, and something more, something I stole discreetly from the local cemetery under the shroud of midnight. The harvesting of tears was the abyss I dug with my own hands. It wasn't easy, at first. Observing wasn't enough. The pain of others, I discovered, is volatile, elusive. I needed to catalyze. A provoked traffic accident on the dusty road near Oxford, where a young driver, James, wept over the crushed body of his fiancée, Elizabeth, before the ambulance arrived. A controlled fire in an abandoned warehouse in Bristol, where a homeless man, known only as Old Man Henry, lost the dog that was his only family. His salty tears dripping onto the scorched earth while I watched, hidden, with sterilized collection vials. Each vial, meticulously labeled with name, date, and the source of the pain. My herbarium of horror. The lunambulas sprouted. Stems thin, black as jet, twisting towards the moon like supplicating fingers. The first leaves were translucent membranes that held dew like silver tears. And the flowers, the flowers. They bloomed only on full moon nights, petals of a purple so deep it verged on black, arranged in hypnotic spirals that seemed to suck the very light around them. They exuded a sweet and rotten perfume, like honey mixed with ancient grave dirt. That's when I watered their roots with the concoction, drop by drop, the viscous, salty liquid from my sinister bottles. The earth trembled, whispered, as if swallowing a filthy secret. And then, under the moonlight, the shadows danced. They weren't the delicate shadows of petals or stems. They were humanoid figures, smudges of denser darkness projected onto the ground, the garden walls, distorted but unmistakable. I saw the hunched silhouette of Old Man Henry, shoulders shaking in a silent, eternal sob. I saw James's slighter form, writhing in mute agony. I saw others, so many others, indistinct faces but postures marked by absolute anguish. The shadows moved slowly, trapped in a painful rhythm, repeating the moment of capture, the instant their most lacerated essence was torn away with the tears. It was their souls, I realized with a chill that never left me. Fragments of soul imprisoned in that sickly beauty, displayed like macabre trophies under the silver light. The house became unbearable. Whispers came from the garden, not audible to the ears, but echoing inside my skull. Muffled moans, unending sobs, a chorus of despair permeating the bricks and wood. The sweet rotten perfume infiltrated everything, the cupboards, the bed linens, my own skin. I could no longer distinguish my sweat from the scent of the flowers. My sanity, like the shadows, began to distort. I dreamt of the donors' faces, their empty eyes fixed on me, accusatory. I woke with the salty taste of tears in my mouth, mine or theirs, I no longer knew. It was on a particularly cold night, the moon a pitiless silver disk in the sky above Manchester, that the boundary was crossed. The shadows weren't content to dance on the ground anymore. They began to climb. Patches of palpable darkness scaling the external walls of the house, like poisonous creepers made of pure dread. I saw the outlines of James stretching towards me through the kitchen window, the shadowy fingers of old man Henry scratching the glass of my bedroom with a dry sound, like nails on slate. The air inside grew heavy, oppressive, laden with the weight of countless sufferings. Every dark corner seemed to hide a twisted form, ready to materialize. That's when I noticed something new. Something that shouldn't be there. Among the known shadows, James, old man Henry, the woman from Bath who lost her son, there was another. Smaller, fainter, but terrifyingly familiar. A silhouette reminiscent of a child, or a very small woman. A posture I knew intimately, a curve of the head that made my heart stop. It was Isabel's shadow. My Isabel. But how? I swore her accident was quick, painless. The tears I shed for her, so bitter and abundant, were genuine? Or had some part of her, some essence, become trapped within my own pain, and the lunambulas, those spiritual parasites, had sucked it from me while I watered the others with strangers weeping? The garden is no longer mine. It's theirs. The souls I trapped. The flowers have grown beyond any expectation, black petals the size of plates, stems thick as sleeping snakes. The shadows are almost tangible now, occupying space, filling the air with their icy presence. I feel light touches, like threads of icy cobweb, on my nape when I'm out there. Whispers I can't decipher, but carrying the weight of infinite anguish. I try to pull them up, burn them, but my hands tremble, paralyzed by a primal fear and a guilt gnawing at my insides. They are strong, fed by so much suffering. Now, as I write this confession by the weak light of a candle, I notice a dark stain in the corner of my study. It's not a normal shadow. It's denser, more conscious. It's slowly stretching across the wooden floor towards me. And you listening to my voice right now, might think this is just a story. A tale for shivers. But look around you for a moment. Look at the shadows dancing on your wall, cast by your lamp or your screen. Are they truly the shadows of objects you know? Or is there something more there, a shape that doesn't fit, a movement that shouldn't exist? Moonlight, you see, moonlight reaches everywhere, even filtered through curtains. And salt. The salt of tears is a common thing, isn't it? The stain has reached my feet. It's cold. So cold. I can make out the curve of a small shoulder, the tilt of a head I knew better than my own. Isabel. She's finally come for me. Not to punish me, I think. To show me. To integrate me into the garden. The lunambulas need more sustenance. They always will. And your world, as the note said, is so rich in tears. Exceedingly rich. Isabel's shadow merges with mine now, a smudge of elongated darkness trembling on the floor. The candle is guttering out. Total darkness is their kingdom. Listen to the whispers. They are hungry, always hungry. The garden needs to grow, needs more shadows, more souls. Look at your own shadow once more. Are you still sure it's only you? The moonlight is beautiful outside. And the tears, tears are so easy to obtain. So easy. They are coming. For me. For you. For all of us. The garden of lunar shadows is eternal, and its soil will always need watering. The first time the clock did its work was exactly at midnight, and old Henry the baker from York was found on his shop floor like a disassembled puzzle, every bone separated cleanly, precisely, as if dissolved by invisible acid. I, Arthur, the clockmaker from Sheffield everyone called eccentric, but whose secrets no one suspected, felt the echo of that final clunk in my chest, a coldness not just from the Yorkshire night. I knew, with a certainty that poisoned me inside, that my creation worked, and that it needed feeding. It all began with Eleanor. My Eleanor. Sunlight trapped in her hair, a laugh like music in the dusty antique clock shop on Baker Street. Cancer took her slowly, relentlessly, draining her colors until only pain and a fragile skeleton under translucent skin remained. The impotence gnawed at me, more bitter than machine oil. When she left, she took any remaining light in the world. What remained was a terrible void and a sick idea, planted like a poisonous weed in my grieving mind, germinating in the shadow of my despair. If time could be measured, controlled by gears and pendulums, why not death itself? Why not dictate the moment of departure, with mechanical, cold, absolute precision? The bones were the first step. St. Mary's Cemetery, right here in Sheffield, became my nocturnal harvesting ground. Not fresh graves, no. I sought the ancient, the forgotten, those whose time-cracked tombs offered easy access to loose earth and remains already disconnected by decay. Femurs solid like old oak beams, vertebrae forming perfect columns, hand bones seemingly carved to hold tiny cogwheels. Each exhumed piece, meticulously cleaned in my basement-turned-workshop of darkness, carried a different weight. Not of remorse, but of growing obsession. They were merely raw material, fuel for the mechanism that would bring order to the chaos that took Eleanor. That's how I convinced myself, in the long hours spent under the weak light of a hanging bulb, the smell of damp earth, old bone, and clock oil forming a nauseating perfume that clung to my clothes, my skin. The construction took months. The clock wouldn't be a mobile of bones, it would be a cathedral of time, a monument to the precision of death. 7 feet tall, erected in the heart of my basement, far from prying eyes. The main structure was crossed femurs, sturdy as main beams. The larger gears, meticulously sanded and drilled pelvic discs. The smaller ones, delicate phalanges and carpal bones, fitted with a surgical precision demanding hours of work under a loop and jeweler's tools. The pendulum, the centerpiece, was a complete spinal column, suspended by a stainless steel wire as fine as a hair. At its lower end, a skull, not a replica, but a real skull, polished to a shine, its empty sockets eternally fixed on the concrete floor. Inside it, where the brain should be, rested the monster's heart, the escapement, made of tiny inner ear bones, a macabre work of art dictating the lethal rhythm. The face, a large circular smoked glass screen, showed no numbers. It marked only the hours in acid-etched symbols, runes I designed myself on feverish, sleepless nights, symbols speaking of endings and separation. The first feeding was the hardest, psychologically. I needed a vital, fresh piece to start the mechanism. The clock's heart demanded a human heart, symbolically, for the initial impulse. I found a drug dealer, human scum named Liam, who terrorized the neighborhood of Bramall. It was easy to lure him into a dark alley with the promise of a stolen gold watch. The blow was swift, precise, with a heavy wrench. I felt no pity, only a cold urgency. His heart, still warm and feebly pulsing, was placed inside the pendulum skull, connected by copper wires to tiny bone needles piercing the escapement. When I connected it to the power source I'd improvised, a dangerous combination of controlled electrical currents, the pendulum gave its first, dragging movement. A dry crack echoed in the basement, like a joint dislocating. Liam's heart contracted one last time and fell still. The clock came alive. A low, deep tick-tock, like amplified heartbeats, filled the air. And 1 hour later, punctually, Henry, the innocent baker, came apart like a puppet without strings. From then on, the mechanism demanded its regular toll. Not a heart each time, but one death per striking hour, dictated by the relentless rhythm of the bone gears. Did the clock choose the victim? Or did I, by tuning it to the chaotic energy of the city, merely channel death that already existed, giving it a hideously precise form? I wasn't sure. I knew only that when the bone pendulum reached its highest point and the gears prepared for the fatal clunk marking the hour, someone in Sheffield paid the price. The student Amelia, found in her house in Ecclesall, bones scattered across the living room like abandoned toys. The cab driver Frederick, his skeleton perfectly disarticulated inside his car, stopped at a traffic light in the city center. Each death was an echo of the clunk I heard in the basement, an echo resonating within my own skeleton, a subtle, threatening vibration. The city descended into panic. Newspapers from London to Edinburgh spoke of the skeleton curse, of a serial killer with impossible methods. Scotland Yard was lost, patrolling the streets with palpable tension, but hunting a flesh and blood killer, not the shadow of my clock. I had become a specter, locked in my basement, listening to the constant tick-tock, counting the minutes to the next hour, to the next deadly clunk. The guilt, which I'd kept at bay with the justification of punishing the unworthy, became a monster larger than the machine. The victims were random, innocent. Old Henry, young Amelia. Eleanor would never have approved. Her face, once a source of love, appeared in my dreams disassembled, the skull bones separating while her eyes, still alive, accused me. The rhythm accelerated. The clock, fed by death, seemed to grow hungry. The tick-tock became more insistent, louder, even when I covered my ears. The vertebrae pendulum swung with a wider arc, almost threatening, as if wanting to break free. The bone gears ground with a dry sound, not of mechanical friction, but like teeth clenched in agony. The air in the basement grew thick, heavy, laden with a smell of dried blood and bone dust, but also with something else, a static energy, a cold emanating from the clock's very components. On moonlit nights, I swore I saw a faint, bluish phosphorescence emanating from the bone joints, as if the specter of each victim was trapped there, feeding the machine with their eternal terror. And then, today, something changed. At the stroke of 3 in the afternoon, the clunk was different. Sharper, more personal. A stabbing pain, as if a rib had come loose, shot through my chest. I looked at the rune-marked face. The marking for the next hour wasn't a vague symbol. It seemed to distort, forming contours that resembled a face. My face. An icy panic, different from anything I'd felt before, seized me. The clock was hungry, yes, but now it looked upon its creator. The vertebrae pendulum swung towards me, the skull at its end seeming to smile with its eternal teeth. The tick-tock accelerated, hammering inside my skull, synchronizing with the frantic rhythm of my heart. The gears spun faster, bones grinding in protest, seeming to stretch, trying to break free from their mountings. Dark stains, like liquid shadows, began forming at the joints, seeping down the bone like old oil. You hear it now, as my voice trembles on this recorder, the constant tick-tock in the background? It just sounds like noise, doesn't it? An ordinary clock. But think of the last time you felt a sudden, inexplicable pain, a twinge in your back, a joint locking for no reason. Was it upon hearing a distant bell, the chime of a church clock, a neighbor's alarm? Coincidence, you say. We always do. Until the coincidences form a sinister pattern. Time is a chain, and every tick is a link. What makes you so sure the next clunk isn't marked for your own skeleton? Wherever you are, listening to this confession. The mechanism is insatiable. It must be fed, and it chooses. The cold down here in the basement is absolute now. My right hand no longer responds, the fingers inert, as if the joints have fused. I see dark stains creeping up my arm, under the skin, following the lines of the bones. The pendulum swings closer. The skull is turned directly towards me. I can see my distorted reflection in the polished surface of the frontal bone, a face etched with terror. The tick-tock is a war drum inside my head. It's 2 minutes to 4. The gears have accelerated to a high-pitched whine, bones twisting against their mounts, the liquid shadows seething. The face glows with its own light. The rune resembling my face is pulsing. I feel pressure on my cervical vertebrae, as if invisible hands are already beginning the work of disassembly. The bone pendulum clock is hungry, and dinner is served. Arthur, the clockmaker from Sheffield, will be its final piece, its masterpiece. And after me, who will it be? The tick-tock doesn't stop, never stops. It's everywhere, in the beat of your heart, in the relentless passage of seconds. Listen closely. The next clunk might have your name etched in bone. The mechanism must be fed, always. The first thing I felt wasn't the cold, but the silence. An icy vacuum sucking even the echo of my own thoughts. I lay motionless, imprisoned not by chains, but by a shell of merciless transparent ice encasing my body like a crystal shroud. The dim, blue-tinged light of the chamber glinted off the frozen faces around me, members of the Dante Club, once masters of the universe in London, now grotesque statues in their final circle. The ice core. And I, Thomas, the youngest and perhaps most foolish of the group, knew we'd gone too far. The cold was just the casing. The true horror was unfurling inside me, a dark presence unfolding where my soul used to reside. It all began with Victoria, of course. Undisputed queen of London high society, owner of a mining empire and an appetite for experiences that made the boredom of absolute wealth feel like a terminal illness. The Dante Club was her most perverse creation, an exclusive group of 7, including her, meeting every full moon in her fortified Chelsea mansion. It wasn't about sex or common drugs, it was about transcendence through controlled suffering, a technological recreation of Dante's circles of hell. I remember lust, simulated by hallucinogenic mists and sonic frequencies that made flesh scream with pleasure until it bled. Wrath, where calibrated electric shocks provoked blind rages in mirrored chambers. Even treachery, a complex web of lies and virtual realities where no one knew whom to trust. We used machines that seemed ripped from a steampunk nightmare, coiled glass tubes, rusted brass gears spewing psychotropic vapors, leather helmets studded with electrodes. And hallucinogens, always, distilled from rare Scottish Highland plants or synthesized in obscure Edinburgh labs, to refine perception, as Gregory, the group's chemist, said. He was to my left now, his usual mask of cynicism replaced by one of pure terror frozen in ice. Victoria was always clear about the ultimate goal. It wasn't just to feel hell, it was to master it, to conquer absolute fear. And the 9th circle, Judas's, reserved for traitors, was the eternal ice. The ice core would be our coronation, our final test. A state-of-the-art cryogenic chamber, imported under absolute secrecy from Switzerland, capable of simulating Antarctic temperatures in minutes. But it wasn't just cold. It was ice as prison, as purgatory. The plan was to be subjected to extreme cold, our bodies immobilized, while a combination of powerful hallucinogens and direct neural stimulation would project us into the frozen landscape of the traitor, to confront our inner demons and emerge victorious. Purified by ice, she proclaimed with burning eyes. Preparation was meticulous. Minimal thermal clothing, just enough to not die instantly. Needles implanted in specific points of the skull, connected to the central machine. a steel and wire monstrosity occupying an entire wall of the mansion's renovated basement. The hallucinogens, a viscous black mixture dubbed Lucifer's Tear, were injected directly into our veins. I remember the metallic taste, the sudden heat that swept my body before being swallowed by the rising cold. Victoria, standing before us like a modern priestess, initiated the final sequence. The hermetic doors of the chamber closed with a sinister click. The air began to crackle, losing heat at an absurd speed. The first icy breath burned my lungs like fire. Then, only relentless numbness. Physical immobilization was almost instant. The ice formed quickly, first as frost on the steel walls, then coating our bodies, flowing over skin, seeping into clothing, solidifying in seconds. There was no moving, not a millimeter. Only the eyes could wander, trapped in their sockets, witnessing the horror around them. I saw the wide eyes of Isabella, the socialite, reflecting panic. I saw the open mouth of Oliver, the banker, trying to scream, but only an ice bubble formed on his blue lips. The cold was a living entity, biting, penetrating, replacing blood with frozen gravel. Then, the machines began. A deep hum emanated from the wall, followed by a series of dry clicks. The electrodes in our skulls vibrated. The Lucifer's Tear hit the brain like an ice hammer. The physical landscape of the chamber dissolved. It wasn't a dream, it was a displacement. Suddenly, I was on a frozen lake under a starless black sky. The ice beneath my feet, or the illusion of them, was black as obsidian, and trapped within it, up to their chests, were the others. Not their physical bodies, but their distorted, haunted forms. Victoria was there, but her face was a mask of cracked pride. Her eyes glowed with a yellow light that wasn't human. Gregory writhed, his mouth open in a silent scream, and from his throat came not sounds, but small black smoke serpents. Isabella wept tears that froze instantly into blood diamonds. It was Lake Cocytus, the circle of traitors. And we were in it, trapped. But we weren't alone. Shapes moved in the darkness beyond the ice. Slithering shadows, tall, gangly figures with limbs ending in claws. Demons. The demons described by Dante, but filtered through the visceral terror the machine and drugs injected into our brains. One of them, a thing with a crow's head and a hairy spider body, crawled across the black ice towards Oliver. There was no sound, only unbearable pressure in the ears. The creature leaned over him, its claws touching the ice around his neck. Then, something monstrous happened. Not to Oliver, but inside him. I saw his form trapped in the ice deflate, like a punctured balloon, while a black, viscous essence was sucked out by the demon's claws. Simultaneously, the creature seemed to gain substance, its form becoming more defined, more real. Where there had been only shadow, now there were twisted horns, eyes like embers, a smile of needles. Oliver's soul, or what remained of it, had been exchanged. The demon occupied his place in the ice, but now its ember eyes fixed on the others, hungry. The process repeated, one by one. The spider demon went for Isabella. A bat-winged entity with the face of a weeping baby came for Gregory, extracting his essence with an icy kiss that left only a trembling, empty husk in the ice. Victoria was last. A majestic, horrendous being, like a fallen angel made of shattered ice and shadow, hovered over her. There was no struggle. She lifted her chin, a final act of defiance, and the ice angel demon plunged into her chest like a spear of darkness. When it emerged, Victoria was still, her eyes now two black craters, while the ice angel demon radiated a cold threatening to crack the very lake of ice in my mind. And me. I watched, paralyzed by cold and absolute terror. The demons, now wearing the frozen husks of my companions, turned to me, their inhuman eyes fixed on me, trapped in the ice. The demon wearing Oliver's form opened its mouth, and an icy whisper, impossible yet clear as a knife thrust, echoed inside my skull, not through ears, but directly into consciousness. Time to pay the tribute, fragile flesh. The ice consumes. The void calls. That's when I felt it. Not the external cold, but an internal cold, crawling from my extremities towards my core. A black, heavy, ancient presence began to unfurl inside my chest, occupying the space where my fear pounded. It was like being invaded by a swarm of frozen wasps, each carrying a fragment of primordial malice. My consciousness recoiled, shriveled into a tiny corner of my own mind, while that thing settled in, stretching, testing the limits of my body like a new suit. I was still there, Thomas, reduced to a spark of terror watching from within, but control, the essence, was being usurped. Memories began to fade, replaced by visions of endless chasms, of eternal screams on plains of ice. Their souls weren't just taken, they were exchanged. And the price was to inhabit this body, this failing shell of flesh. The hum of the external machine, the real one in the physical ice chamber, changed tone. It became sharper, more triumphant. The blue light flickered, and for an instant, through the ice covering my eyes, I swore I saw the instruments on the wall moving by themselves, needles spinning on numberless dials, valves releasing vapor darker than night. The machine wasn't just a simulator. It was a door, a lock. And we, the foolish rich, had provided the keys, our bodies, and the demanded tribute, our souls. Now, as the thing inside me settles, I feel its thoughts like ice shards in my remaining consciousness. It looks through my eyes at the other frozen bodies, its new prisons, and I sense an ancient hunger, a perverse satisfaction. The demons aren't just trapped in the ice with us. They're trapped within us. And when the thaw comes, because Victoria certainly programmed a cycle, what will exit this chamber won't be the Dante Club. The physical ice will melt, yes, but the ice in the souls, that is eternal. The machine fulfilled its function, the door was opened, and the ice core isn't a circle of hell, it's the waiting room for a new occupation. You there, listening to this recording I made mentally, a final message cast into the ether before this spark of me fades entirely. Do you feel a chill right now? Maybe you adjusted the air conditioning, or it's just the night cooling. But look at the shadows in the corner of your room. Do they seem denser today? Feel a sudden, inexplicable cold, as if a door to a very ancient, very dark place had been suddenly opened, even if just for an instant? The Dante Club might have been secret, but what we unleashed, what now wears the skin of Thomas, Victoria, Gregory, Isabella, Oliver, and the others, that knows no borders. Hell found a new way to travel. And the tribute always needs paying. The ice may melt, but the void we brought, that only grows. Beware the cold that arrives without warning. Beware the eyes that glow with a light that isn't human. The Dante Club ended its last session, but the show has only just begun. And the tickets, you're already paying for them, in little shivers, in sudden nightmares, in fears you cannot name. The ice core is everywhere now. And the tribute, I repeat, the tribute always needs paying.